Good morning, everybody. I can see the participant count lifting as I speak, so I think plenty of people are joining us currently. I think we're already up to just short of 60 people. I think we're expecting maybe somewhere heading towards 100 by the time the session commences properly and everybody kicks in. So welcome. I want to say a big thank you to you all for attending this PRCA Southeast Asia session in association with CARMA Asia on the value of communications, especially pertinent, of course, during this COVID era and as we move to the next normal. My name is Lee Nugent, and I'm the chairman of the PRCA in Southeast Asia, and I have the privilege of introducing today's speakers, which I'll do shortly. We have a great lineup as we take part in our industry's measurement month. As I say, the session is in association with CARMA Asia, who are our media intelligence partner, but also in association with Amec, which is the International Association for the Measurement and Evaluation of Communications. Today's session, as is our new normal ourselves, is taking place online, of course, and it features a host of experts from in-house roles, agency roles and industry partners. So do forgive us, given the online nature of this session, do forgive us any small technical glitches. Last time I chaired a session, I think at the beginning my section was interrupted twice by my 5-year-old twin daughters. The first time one walked in and asked me to take her to the toilet, and the second time the other one sent a 30-page piece of artwork remotely to my wireless printer, which was very noisy in the background. The good news is that my kids are at school today, so hopefully we won't get that. And also Tara, who is the general manager of the PRCA, is much more au fait with making sure these things run smoothly than I am. So hopefully it will be seamless for you. Our opening keynote, when we commence, is on the value of communications in our world today, and is presented by Richard Bagnall, who is the chairman of Amec and one of the world's foremost experts in measurement and the evaluation of communications. Now, Richard is based in the UK, and we really wanted him to take part in this session. So what we've asked him to do is to record this session for us. It's in the middle of night for him right now. So the opening keynote will be a recorded session from Richard Bagnall. If you have any questions to ask, we encourage you to use the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom window. If those questions for Richard are questions that we can't answer right now, then we'll make sure that he gets them and we share those answers later. As we move beyond the recorded keynote, the 2 panel sessions to follow will be live. And of course, we will also be encouraging you to ask questions for both of those. The 2 sessions are chaired by moderators who come from within the industry, and I'll introduce them as we get to those sessions later on. But I'm sure you're going to find them valuable, and our moderators in turn will introduce the speakers. Before we kick off, though, in my last couple of minutes, I wanted to add a few words of context of my own on behalf of the PRCA Southeast Asia, and they're these really. When it comes to measurement and evaluation in this region, we are definitely making progress, but probably not fast enough. Articulation of the valuation of what we do is critical not only to gain buy-in, as we all know, but also to give us increased access to and influence within our own companies and organizations. This is a really important topic. Sometimes it can feel quite dry and quite mechanical, but it's absolutely critical to making sure that the value of what we do is seen by those around us and those who hold budgets and those who can commission us to do more and enable us to have more influence within our own organizations. The PRCA census of 2019 looked at some of the issues that we face, and I've just jotted a couple of statistics down here, so forgive me while I read them out. In that survey, it was noted that about 16% of the industry in our region doesn't do any evaluation or measurement of the value of communications at all. So 16% of us do nothing whatsoever to articulate the value of what we do. And on top of that, 14% still use as the primary and preferred measurement tool AVEs, or advertising value equivalents, which I'm sure most, if not all of you know. AVEs are exceptionally discredited these days, and Richard's session will talk about that a little bit. So just adding those two figures together is 30%, so nearly a third of our industry in this region are either doing nothing or using AVEs. Actually, more than half are using either zero tools or tools that probably aren't giving the results that they should be giving. So this is an issue for all of us to face and for all of us to deal with. We are getting better, but it's pretty slow. There's also been a recent piece of research conducted by ECO, which is the International Communications Consultants Organization, and their research came out just a few weeks ago. And the data was very similar to PRCA's own data. They suggested that around the world, something like 17% of us in our profession are still choosing AVEs as our preferred measurement tool. And some 40% of us in this region are using AVEs in some way or other. And why are we doing this? Well, about 3/4 of our bosses or our clients are asking us to. So there's a real challenge for us in terms of educating the wider industry, in showing them the different options that are out there, the more effective options that are out there, and adopting measurement and evaluation techniques that really can truthfully tell the story of how successful or not our campaigns are being. Richard, who will be doing the recorded keynote in just a session, and I will hand over very shortly to Tara to play that for us. Richard is an expert in this space and is very familiar with these challenges, and he will cover some of the challenges we face, some of the issues around AVEs and measurement tools today, but also how we can adopt alternative, better and more meaningful evaluation frameworks. So on that note, I will pass over to Tara to play the video. My role from here on in will be just to facilitate between the sessions. So do enjoy, do leave questions. I hope you gain value. And most of all, I hope you gain food for thought. So thank you very much for attending today. Over to you, Tara.
Hello, my name is Richard Bagnall. I'm CARMA International's Global Co-Managing Partner, and I'm the Chairman of Amec. Amec is the Global Trade Association for organizations that are interested in best practice evaluation of communications. Every November, we host a series of events around the world called Measurement Month. And today's event, in conjunction with the PRCA Southeast Asia, is part of that festival. It's all about sharing best practice, learning and education for the industry all around the world on how to measure communications effectively. And therefore, I'm delighted to have the opportunity to be able to speak to you. Even though I'm stuck in London, it's dark outside, it's really cold, and it's pouring with rain as well. I wish I could have been with you in person in Singapore. It's still my pleasure to join my colleagues from CARMA and to speak to you. I think it's never been more important than now. It's wake up time for the industry, that now is the time that we need to really start to think about how do we measure our communications effectively. And the title of your event today, The Value of Communications in the New Era of COVID-19, really sums up the challenges we face. You know, all around the world, organizations, whether they're commercial or not-for-profit, will be looking at their budget lines and they'll be saying, what money can I save? How can I cut costs? And if they see the PR function as a cost center and not as something that generates value, then there's going to be big problems for PR budgets. The only way that we're going to be able to defend our budgets and maintain our importance and role within the firms that we represent is to show that we generate value for our organization, not that we just conduct activity and do things, but that we actually are creating value for the organization that we represent. So it's wake up time, because this year it has been more than ever just all about the pandemic. And so as I thought for today's talk about the current state of the industry and what this means, I thought there's no better insight that I could share with you than some highlights from Amec's global survey. So Amec began as a small trade association 25 years ago in the UK, just of organizations that basically cut up newspapers and humans read them. Of course, the industry's changed so much now, and it's now all about how do you measure and evaluate communications, digital, word of mouth, all of this stuff. And we have over 185 members in more than 85 countries around the world. And those members aren't just companies like CARMA, the providers of monitoring and analytics services, but they're also academics, public relations agencies, trade associations, in-house departments, anyone who's interested in measurement and evaluation of communication. And each year we conduct a survey amongst our membership and we ask them about how business is for them. And this year we ran it back in March. And of course, March was as the world was tipping into this new normality that we've been in ever since, as we were tipping into various lockdowns in different regions around the world. And when we asked our members, what you can see on this first slide that I'm sharing was the impact that COVID was having on their business. And it's broken down by the type, the broad category of members. But I think they reflect the public relations and communications industry at large. We've got the vendors, we've got independent practitioners, we've got PR agencies, we've got in-house here. And what you can see with the orange bars, these are businesses that have been significantly up to or over 50% of their business has been impacted. And we'll be seeing that in organizations of all sorts, not just PR focused ones around the world. When we look at the type of thing that was causing the disruption, we can see the ability of these organizations to do business development, to sell is being hampered. The ability to work in an office, here I am sitting at home. Their ability to communicate, their ability to actually close deals, the delays that are being injected, the lack of certainty that faces everyone in their organization. And what we know is that markets and organizations do not like uncertainty. And unfortunately, even though as I speak to you tonight, there is hope that a number of vaccines are showing positive results, and there's hope that this pandemic may be finished sooner rather than later, it's not at all clear that it will be or how long it will still take. And so organizations, as they plan their finances for next year, finance directors everywhere will be putting a fine line over all of their budgets to say, where am I getting value? Where am I just spending money? Where is cost that I don't need? And I fear that this could create the perfect storm for the PR industry. If we can't measure our effectiveness and our value, talk to the C-suite in sensible language about what it is that we're achieving, how we're supporting their organizational objectives, we could be in for really tough times, significant budget cuts, and none of us want or deserve that. And the reason I think it's a perfect storm is that we continue in too many organizations to not measure in the meaningful way. And I think one of the reasons that we do that is reflected by this slide. Alex Aitken is the head of UK Government Communications Service. He's in charge of all of the thousands upon thousands of communications professionals who work in UK government communications. He's known around the world as setting the highest standards of professionalism in the industry. And when Alex came into UK government communications, he was struck by how many people were doing what he calls SOS. SOS stands for just sending out stuff. How many people were just sending stuff out, sending out releases, doing activity, doing social media, putting content online on social channels, as I say, press releases, but without taking a moment to stop and think about what it was they were doing. They were doing activity for the sake of activity's sake. Now, I've run communications evaluation businesses for 25 years. But before that, I used to work in PR and comms myself. I worked both in-house and I worked at Saatchi & Saatchi's PR agency. So I can say this. I know that it's true, that it is too easy to get embroiled in activity when you work in PR. You join a public relations firm or start working in-house and it's crazy busy. There's stuff that we have to do and we just get involved in the day-to-day work. And not enough time is spent on stopping and thinking, what is it that we're trying to do? What are the organizational objectives that we need to be shoring up and supporting, and then tangibly demonstrating that we're supporting with our work? So Alex calls it SOS, too much SOS. And Alex is a pretty brusque person. And when he's feeling particularly so, he actually describes it as they just send out shit. And that, frankly, is one of the problems. If we just do stuff, then when we look to measure it, we'll just count stuff. We'll count the activity metrics that we've been doing. But do those activity metrics talk to the problems that the business faces? And the answer is, it doesn't. They don't. We have to prove value by showing how we link to organizational objectives. Now, I mentioned that I've worked in PR evaluation, comms evaluation for 25 years. And over those years, I've heard every excuse under the sun about why PR pros, and I used to be one of them, don't engage with evaluation beyond just taking data from a provider and hoping that whatever they've counted, whatever data that's appearing in a chart and a dashboard is actually measuring something that's meaningful. It's very easy to think, well, because I've outsourced this, whatever I'm getting back must be meaningful. So, and I'm too busy to spend the time to stop and think about it. And these are some of the excuses, that there's no pressure on me to do this. I haven't got the buy-in. No one will fund my budget to do this. It's too difficult and complicated, or it's too simplistic, or there aren't any standards, so why should I do it? Or I don't have the time. Or can PR really influence an organization's objectives? I don't think so. It's more nuanced than that, so I'm not going to get involved. Or the AVEs and the counting metrics that I've got suffice. And frankly, when people are being honest, and I was one of these people, I used to fear the results as well. I've had every excuse under the sun. And my message to your conference today is, this is rubbish. This is bullshit. This has to stop. We face an existential crisis. We have to start talking the language of the business, measuring ourselves in a meaningful way. So how do we do that? How do we move from being tactical, activity-driven cost centers to showing that we're strategic benefits to our organization, that we're creating organizational value, something that the finance directors and the chief executives will know that they need in their budget items as they future plan their finances? Well, the good news is that Amec, the trade association, has help in hand, and I want to share some resources with you today. First of all, why am I showing you this picture? Well, two reasons. One, it's a picture of my boat at the front of the harbour there, and it's a picture. I've got a little fishing boat, and I keep it on the south coast of England, and this is in the garden of my parents' house. And this is a place called Chichester Harbour. Very beautiful. It's an area of outstanding natural beauty. And Chichester Harbour at low tide becomes mudflats, and at high tide, all those mudflats that you see, the water fills up as far as the eye can see. Twice a day, the tide comes in, the tide goes out. Amec was founded with a basic principle, which was, if we educate the market, then everybody benefits. And the expression that was used when I was first told about Amec all those years ago was that a rising tide lifts all ships. And that ethos of supporting everybody and sharing best practice has remained at Amec's heart. And as long as I'm chairman, it continues in that way. We spend over 70% of our budget on providing free educational resources to help the industry improve itself. We gain nothing from it apart from a better informed industry. It's better for everybody. We hugely value our partnerships with global organizations like PRCA Southeast Asia. So again, thank you to them for letting me speak to you all today in this event in conjunction with CARMA. So let's look at some of the resources that we have in place at Amec that could be useful. Well, one of the most well-known resources that Amec produced was called the Barcelona Principles. This is seven statements, 7 facts, if you like, that were first invented or created in 2010 at our global conference, surprise, surprise, in Barcelona. What we did was we got multiple trade associations, ECO, the PRCA, the PRSA, the CIPR, the Global Alliance, all kinds of global PR associations, academics, the measurement and evaluation industry, PR agencies, all came together. And we said we have to have some kind of common standards. And we all voted and we agreed, and there was a unanimous decision that these 7 basic principles represented what good measurement would look like. And that was in 2010. What we do now is to make sure they remain current and fit for the future. We revise and we reiterate them every 5 years. And we've just done the 3rd iteration of these. So 2010, then 2015, they're updated. And we've just done the latest, the Barcelona Principles 3.0. In my slide on the right, you can see them in detail. On the left, I've summarized what they're really about. They're talking about the importance. You can't measure if you don't know where you want to go. You must set goals. You must link your activity outputs to outtakes, what people think, and outcomes, what people now do. And that's how we're going to tell a meaningful measurement story. We should make sure that the outcomes and the impact that we associate with are actually meaningful and relevant to the organization, and that's something that the organization wants us to achieve. We can't just count stuff in a quantitative way. We have to look at the qualitative information as well. And they're perhaps most famous for the number 5, that AVEs are a flawed metric. They're not the value of communications, and the industry shouldn't be using them. Now, in 2010, 80%, our research showed, of global PR programs had AVE as a metric, as some component or other in it. Today, with the education, with the Barcelona Principles, that number has fallen significantly, and it's down now to global programs. It's about 15% of global programs. In the American market, in the Western Europe market, AVEs are basically largely eradicated. I know that in Southeast Asia, in parts of MENA, they're more common, and I understand the challenges and the reasons why, but they are a globally derided and a obviously flawed metric. And my challenge to you all, if you are using it, is that we need to stop, because there will be no excuse when you provide an AVE to a boss, and perhaps a new boss in this current situation, who says, why are you using a metric that has been proven to be meaningless? And I don't want you to be in that situation. We're going to come back to AVEs in a minute. We'll just finish off on Principle 6 and 7. So they're very simple, really. These are top level views. Principle 6 is that we must measure on and offline content, of course. And Principle 7 is that our measurement should be transparent and replicable and ethical and easy for people to understand. Now, if you want to know more about the Barcelona Principles, this deck will be shared with you afterwards. And in the bottom left of this slide, you can see that orange plus sign where it says Barcelona Principles 3.0. When you click on there, you will find a link to a full resource center about them. Obviously, you could just Google for them as well. Let's come back to AVEs. AVEs are based on zero academic research. In fact, when I looked into the history, there's a fantastic white paper written by Dr. Tom Watson called AVEs, PR's Orphaned Metric. And in it, he researched their entire history. He found zero academic research to ever suggest that they are a meaningful metric. In fact, he found the complete opposite. He found that since they were first mentioned in the IPR journal, this is the old CIPR, the UK's Institute of Public Relations, now called the Chartered Institute for Public Relations, their first mention was in their magazine in 1949, where they were described as a grave mistake that's done more to undermine PR than any other. This was in 1949. Since then, all research has continued to show similar things. And in fact, Francis Ingham, the Director General of the PRCA and the boss of ECO, the Global Trade Association, he says they measure nothing other than the vanity of those that report them. And he says that because he knows that they're a meaningless metric. And to help you, if you are using them, understand why they're a meaningless metric and how you might move away, because we understand you might be under pressure from a boss or a client who's demanding them. I've written this white paper with 22 reasons that very simply explain why they are meaningless. And it's available for you to download or reference on Amec's website to people who still want you to use them to help wean them off. And working with my excellent colleagues at CARMA, like Andrew, we'll be able to help wean you off an AVE and provide you more meaningful metrics while you deprioritize that AVE. So if you'd like to get that white paper and read more about it, I'm not going to talk any more about it today, then again, you'll see in the bottom left a link, 22 reasons to say no to AVEs. And you'll find that, and it is in, it's been translated into a number of different languages. So please, Barcelona Principles said AVEs, the global industry agreed they're in steep terminal decline around the world. Please do your utmost to stop using them. They're a meaningless metric. They only count activity. They just show that you're a cost center. They do not show value. The pound sign, the dollar sign at the front of an AVE is not a value sign. Don't confuse it with one. Now, one of the criticisms that the Barcelona Principles get is people say, well, they're all very well, but they're very top line. How do I actually run a meaningful measurement program? And for that reason, Amec provided the integrated evaluation framework. This is another free to use educational resource center. This time it's a whole microsite. Again, you'll find the link at the bottom left where it says integrated evaluation framework in my deck. You'll be able to slide to click on it and view this microsite. It's translated into 22 different languages. It's in use by over 2,000 organizations around the world. And this microsite provides every piece of information you could on how do you measure in a meaningful way. How do you measure across the integrated channels that we now work on? So social and digital and mainstream, with word of mouth, with paid and earned and shared and owned media. How do we integrate that? And how do we measure across the outputs, our activity that we do, the outtakes, what people now think, and the outcomes, what people have now done, and link all of that back to our organizational objectives so that we can tell that meaningful measurement story that I was challenging you to do. So this is the link, amecorg.com/Amec framework. This is the process that you follow, and it walks you through an interactive website. It's a superb website. I urge you to go and look at it. It walks you through. You can create your own account. It's totally secure. You log in. You can, if you're a PR agency, you can have different client accounts set up on it. If you're an in-house department, you can run it with different campaigns. And it takes you from your organizational objectives to thinking about your targets, your what success looks like, your activities, your outputs, your outtakes, your outcomes, and helps you then pull it together to tell that meaningful story. And as you click through it, The framework opens up, you can fill it in, and it provides information and support on what it is that you need to be thinking about. There is a wealth of information here. This is the one resource that you should take away. If you take one thing away from today on how to measure better, it works for organizations of any size, with any organization and any size budget. You don't have to have a monitoring and evaluation provider do it for you, although obviously it's a part of CARMA's service and we'd love to help. But because it's part of Amec's intellectual property, then it's available for you to use as a free educational resource. So I urge you to go there to that URL and take a look. And if you want to see what meaningful measurement might look like, then CARMA's produced a report that you can download for free and take a look at as well. This is a centenarian, 100 years old, Second World War veteran who, in the grip of the pandemic, when it first started, decided he had to do something. And he decided he was going to raise £1,000 for the healthcare charity in the UK by walking round his garden. His story went viral, and he ended up in 30 days raising over £33 million. And CARMA's done a report looking at how did this phenomenal achievement happen. And rather than just counting tweets and volumes of content and likes and shares, we use those Amec principles in the report to draw out insights and 6 key PR lessons that you can learn. So go and download that report and take a look, and I hope it will help you think about what meaningful measurement looks like. Now, some immediate challenges for you to be considering as you leave from today. First, the pandemic has taught us that normal no longer exists. Whatever it is that we thought we knew, we no longer do. The benchmarks that we've been comparing ourselves to are irrelevant. What happened last year is not what's going to happen this year, and it's not what's going to happen next year. Benchmarks have gone out of the window. In your industry, in your sector, you may find the organizations you are used to competing against might have changed. Your targets need to change. Your past performance metrics need to change. Whatever you thought you understood about your target audiences will have changed. Their hopes, their fears, their concerns, their behaviors, their media consumption, the times of day that they do their media consumption. All the things that they used to do are now different as people around the world adjust to the hopes and fears of living in lockdown and living with a global pandemic. The time frames have changed. The velocity that we have to react to events changes. The mood of the globe swings violently from optimism to pessimism as the news changes in ever faster times. So you need to be looking at your monitoring brief. Is it still relevant? You need to be looking at your evaluation brief. Is it still relevant? Your reporting, is it still relevant? Are you getting a quarterly report? Are you counting activity metrics only? Are you getting insights that can identify strategic opportunities for you to be thinking about? Because if you're not operating in the way that you should be. There is no longer a normal. You need to be nimble. You must iterate at a regular and fast basis. If you have a PR plan, let me tell you, it will be out of date. If you're planning anything longer than maybe 2 months maximum in advance, you're just guessing. The world is so different at the moment. You need to iterate and be revising your plan frequently, your strategy, your tactics, how you message, how you communicate, what works, what resonates, needs to be thought about on an ongoing basis as the global situation changes. We need to speed up. We need to be nimble. We need to iterate. Our reputation of our organization matters more than ever. Our reputation is our license to operate. Many of the channels that were available to PR and communication specialists for reputation enhancing measures in the past, like sponsorship, advertising, events, are no longer available to us. They don't work in the ways that they did. As David Gallagher, the head of Omnicom PR, says, reputation's going to have to be earned the hard way. That means we're going to have to make sure our organization behaves ethically and is shown to behave ethically. It means we're going to have to earn it through our earned media relations work. We're going to have to demonstrate that we're ethical. We're going to have to show that we're an organization with purpose as well as profit that is behind our raison d'etre. So we need to be thinking about, are we promoting, enhancing and defending our reputation? Are you monitoring to check where your content's appearing? Is it appearing on dodgy websites because of programmatic advertising alongside inappropriate adverts or inappropriate content that people may find offensive in this era of COVID? Trust is everything for an organization, particularly now. People will remember when you come out of this situation how your organization behaved. Not what you said, they'll remember how it behaved. Are you working to ensure that that is how you want it to be remembered? Are you monitoring and evaluating against reputation metrics? If you're not, you need to be. Now, Andrew and his team are on hand to help you think about all the different dimensions, over 50 of them, of reputation that you might want to be considering to be measuring. Now, you may also want to start thinking about how to measure better, because as I said before, it's wake-up call time. We need to improve. We need to speed up. We need to review our reporting style. If we're getting quarterly reports, we probably don't want them. We don't want doorstop reports that look back on the previous quarter, because the previous quarter is gone. Last year has gone. We need to know what's happening now, what happened last week, what's happening today. Are you getting daily news reports? Are you getting a daily news summary of the content that matters, with the metrics that matter, the topics that are bubbling up so that you can be on top of your agenda? What are you sharing with your bosses? They haven't got the time to read massive reports with a load of activity metrics. Are you sharing the right type of information in the right type of format with them? Are you giving them insights and measurements about something that just looks backwards? Are you giving them strategic insights as well? Don't think that automation can do this for you. There are many tools that promise that AI and automation will do everything. You can't outsource your thinking, and AI is absolutely at the top of the hype cycle at the moment. There's a lot of hype talked about it and not a lot of substance behind the claims. AI, use it for what it's good for. It's good for heavy lifting of large data sets. It's good for crunching numbers fast. It's good for finding things. What it's not good for is providing context, relevance, insight, meaning. So don't think that AI tools can do this for you. Your budgets will be under pressure, but don't just buy a cheap tool because it's allegedly AI, because a salesman's told you, because it isn't. You need to upskill. If you don't understand enough about measurement, then now's the time to learn. Use some time. You have to be able to talk the language of the C-suite and show how you are a value creator. You have to be relevant to your organization. Without that, you're going to be obsolete. Now, the good news is that the message I'm bringing you today, which I'm afraid is, not a happy message. It doesn't give me any pleasure to be talking about all of this stuff. The good news is that the industry as a large is really waking up to this. And if we look at this, this was back to that Amec survey. This is a chart looking at the relevance of metrics in 2020. What you can see is the metrics at the bottom of this chart, and in the light orange are people saying these are not relevant metrics. The least relevant metric, AVEs. The industry globally knows it's a meaningless metric. Impressions, volume, traffic, meaningless metrics. Why? Because they're just activity. They're just counting what's easy to count. Do they talk about the value that's being created for the organization? How you're shoring up organizational objectives and goals? No, they don't. What are the metrics that do? Reputation, as we've talked about. Message resonance and penetration. Audience insights. Sentiment. Attribution, meaning linking our work to what actually happened that the organization cares about. These metrics at the top, these are the metrics that we need to be linking to and we need to be thinking about. So, as I say, my colleagues at CARMA will be able to help you to work out a meaningful measurement plan. They'll be able to help you shape a framework that fits with your specific objectives. So do talk to them, but do go to the Amec website and do read and learn and engage with this measurement. It has never mattered more than it matters today. So as I wrap, let's look at some tips for success. We have to link and coordinate the organization that we represent. What does that organization exist to do with our comms plan and objectives? We have to have a proper plan of what it is we want to do. We have to iterate that plan for the reasons I've talked about. We have to have a good strategy. We have to link our activity to those things and then measure appropriately. All of those things have to link together to be able to tell a meaningful story of the value that you generate. Please don't rely on automation and dashboards. Just because something is counting something doesn't mean it counts. Okay, be wary of chart porn and data puke. There's too much of it in our industry. It might well just be stuff that's easy to count, but not what matters. It's not relevant and not meaningful to your organization. Please don't think that large impression numbers or high engagement numbers online equal knowledge, awareness, and affinity. They don't. Those type of numbers are easy to cheat. They're easy to fake. The industry, the media industry is full of advertising fraud and bot fraud. 61% of traffic online isn't even human. They're meaningless numbers. If we want to know if our target audience is aware, has knowledge, has affinity, we have to do it the hard way. We have to be able to ask them. Let's make sure that we really think about SMART objectives and SMART targets. What does that mean? SMART is an acronym. It means specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Too many objectives are not realistic or achievable or time-bound. If we make sure that our objectives that we sign up to in advance are SMART and our targets are SMART, and we have those conversations at the beginning of the process with our stakeholders, it means that we get advanced buy-in, and it means that we don't have to fear measurement, but we can embrace it because we can push back if what our boss's expectations are totally unrealistic. And I think that's one of the number one reasons why people do fear measurement, because they don't have these conversations in advance with their bosses. So it's the number one reason that we have to link planning to evaluation. People often say, begin with the end in mind. When you start to plan, to find success, link your measurement and what are the metrics of success back against that plan. You must take the time and effort to upskill and to engage with this. Please don't think that some vendor with a software dashboard is going to be able to measure in a meaningful way that's appropriate and tailored to your organization. You can rest assured that most of them will just count activity and just actually provide metrics that confirm to your finance director and your CEO that you're a cost center and that not that you're a value creator. Now, if you do all of this, if you can link your objectives, your plan, your strategy, your tactics, your activity, the outputs, what happened, the outtakes, what people thought, the outcomes, what did they do? If you can thread those things together, then you'll be able to tell a meaningful measurement story. Then you'll be able to defend your budget. Then you'll show you're not a cost center, that you're a value creator, and then you'll thrive in this era of PR and communications during the pandemic. I wish you all well. Again, I'm sorry I can't be with you. I wish you all health and wellness. I hope you have a good day today. And if you'd like to ask me any questions, you can find me on Twitter at Richard Bagnall, and I'm always pleased to hear from you. I'm also, of course, on LinkedIn, and Andrew and Viv and my excellent colleagues will be pleased to help you as well. Thank you for listening. I hope it's been useful. Goodbye.